Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diabetics Doing Things. We are telling the amazing stories of people with diabetes from all over the world. Very excited to finally have this guest on the podcast because he and I did an interview a few years ago as part of Beyond Type 1's Imagine Spotlights campaign during the summer of 2021. But it's been a little while, and so I'm super psyched that we were able to get him on the podcast today. Mr. Austin James, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob.
And Austin is one of our amazing people with diabetes who is an artist and a musical artist and recording artist. And there are other people with diabetes that we've had on the podcast that are recording artists. And I'm always so interested in the stories, not only that they interact with fans like after shows and on the road, but just managing your diabetes as an artist and, kind of dealing with the highs and lows of being on the road and traveling a lot and being out late and working late in the studio. So really excited to dig into that. But let's start where we always start. And let's get into diagnosis, because I know you and I were kind of diagnosed at the same age. So tell us, when you got that news that you, Austin James, are now living with type 1 diabetes, what was that like?
Yeah, I was 17, so it was my senior year of high school, finishing up. And I got diagnosed. I was, the classic signs, the frequent urination, the horrible weight loss, which was really tough on me, especially being an athlete, a dual athlete with soccer and basketball. And it affected both of those seasons my senior year. But it was tough. It was a tough diagnosis, and it was an overnight change. But I had a good support system with my family, with mother especially, and I took on pretty much all the responsibility by myself. I was old enough to understand, and didn't quite understand at the time why I had it, but
Right.
or how. But as I learned, it was just one of those things kind of living inside me, and here I am today doing this.
Yeah. It's always funny, like looking back, because I was an athlete as well, and just like the adjustments that you have to make, and then also understanding that there's nothing that you did to cause it, right? And I think that those are always like there's a lot of questions, and often, you know, living with diabetes, we're left with more questions than answers, and they sort of get answered over time. So like learning about different kinds of diabetes and different technology, and people back when we were diagnosed was like, oh, well, maybe it was the flu that kicked off this chronic illness, and that now we're learning more about all of those kind of tragic events that are happening inside of our body. But something that really like jumped out to me, because we were diagnosed very similar ages. I was 16 and you were 17, your senior year of high school. What was the reaction like around you, like at school? What did how did you like address it with your friends and peers, like right from the beginning? Do you remember?
Yeah, so fortunately, I my friend Chris, he was in the grade below me, so he was a junior. He was a type 1 diabetic. And I don't I don't advocate using other people's, diabetic supplies or whatever, but I ended up testing my blood sugar at school, and it was got 600. So,
Just a little
I got
high.
yeah, just a little bit. So, but it was nice to have somebody else that had type 1 diabetes, so it wasn't so much a huge deal because people had already gotten used to him having it. But it was kind of like, oh, that's pretty random. But no, I didn't feel out of place. I think I was more embarrassed than anything because I didn't understand why.
Yeah, and I think like it can be very isolating. So it's good that you had, somebody that's around and kind of explain it. And also, of all of the self-diagnosis stories, like usually it's like a parent who's a nurse or something. But man, I keep saying this, and I'm going to continue saying it. A friend with diabetes is a friend indeed, because you never know when you're going to need to test your blood sugar, just like, or they could be the difference between you going to the hospital or like getting a diagnosis at the right time. So shout out to everybody's friends with diabetes.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about like your life as a musician. Um, You've been a musician like your whole life, basically, kind of like, since you were 5, and you're also classically trained in violin. So, how has music helped you navigate the frustrating and often difficult life with diabetes? Is that, would you say it's like your safe space that you're able to go, or, how did that start to manifest itself?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the one place where I feel completely honest. Not that I'm not, you know, living an honest life outside of music, but it's where I can express myself in the most honest way. And I never really got into the whole journaling thing because I would write and it would turn into a song. So it was my way to kind of help myself understand what I was going through to get through those highs and lows. I guess pun intended there. But it was music has definitely given me a healthy outlet, whether or not the music is sad or not. It's part of my journey, and it's a tool and it's a gift that I've been given in order to help me kind of understand the world in a different way.
Well, and I know, I think a lot of people, with diabetes, like whether the song maybe overtly mentions it or not, probably connect themselves to those feelings and to those emotions that like are, coming through the music, from your life with diabetes, and kind of like translate it into, something they can connect to.
Absolutely. And I've never kind of been overt in my lyrics with diabetes because I try to, with my own writing, I try to be as universal as possible so that people can kind of draw their own conclusions and meanings from my songs. But, if I'm doing a songwriter session and able to talk about the song, that's when I can really share my story and how my diabetes and my music connect.
And with that too, like when, and now you're very outspoken about your diabetes, and you're out in the community, you're the face of an Abbott campaign, which we're going to talk about later on. But was it always that way with you? Did that, did you feel like you were able to, from kind of day one, able to share that, or was that something that you grew into?
It's certainly something I grew into. Like I said before, I was pretty embarrassed about it, pretty low key. It was hard getting through my senior year of high school, but also through college as well, because this was pre Obamacare, so I wasn't on my parents' insurance. I had to hustle to get my insulin. I was rationing, so that was really it was a really tough few years there. So I kept it as hush hush as possible, and all I wanted to do is go to my classes and party after on the weekends. But I wasn't able to do those things safely. I was tired of the finger pricks and all this and that. But then just a few years ago, right before I think end of 2018, beginning of 2019, I was finally able to get that Freestyle Libre for the 14-day system, the first one, and it literally changed my life. I was able to get the feeling back in my fingers and play music without all the pain, and I was just kind of invigorated, and I was like, I gotta share this. Here I am sharing my music, but I'm not sharing my story. Like I could be helping people. And I just did a video on my Instagram of me doing, I think, a site change, and a couple of really amazing people that have become lifelong friends of mine reached out to me, and kind of the rest is history.
It's always cool to hear like what other people's like moment that they sort of came out to the diabetes community, right? Because uh, like, yeah, I kind of lived my first 10 years with diabetes, like really closed off and kind of managing it myself. And I, Eritrea and I did an interview recently where we were talking about, when you're high and you're low and somebody asks you an annoying question, like sometimes you like real quickly shut them down or like, bite their head off. And I was certainly guilty of that. Like anytime anyone was like asking me about things, I felt like, no, 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 don't look at me. I'm going to do this myself. And then it kind of, I had this moment kind of very similar to you where I thought, well, me holding this story internally is not helping anyone. And maybe my story could help someone else out there who's feeling alone. And just like you, and Instagram didn't have videos at the time that I did it, but yeah, putting yourself out there and saying, hey, raising your hand, I have diabetes and I do all these other things, is such a powerful moment for people. Was that, just the, going from the finger sticks to the CGM to the site change, like that was the catalyst for you of really like getting more out there in the diabetes community?
It really was. I mean, I regrettably so, I had stopped really like finger pricking like I was supposed to because it was just so painful. So I mean, I had already built up some, really several layers of calluses on my fingertips from playing the guitar, especially. And I was also playing violin, so I was kind of losing a little finesse there, and I had to prick the pads of my fingers. Dude, that was so painful. I was like, this is horrendous. I hate diabetes. I hate this life. Like, I'm not gonna finger prick. And here I am trying to pretend like I can trust my body completely. And it was tough. It was really tough on me. And my bass player actually had the CGM and said, "Dude, what is this? What is this?" And he told me he's a type 2 diabetic. And I talked to my doctor about it, and it probably took me about 5 or 6 doctors before I finally got approved for it. That's a whole different story for a whole other time. But yeah, accessibility to technology is kind of a tough thing in insurance right now. But I was able to get on it and literally changed my life. I am so grateful for it.
Man, you are lucky to have some friends with diabetes and like peers with
Yeah,
diabetes around you. It seems like you're just like a walking billboard for the community. That's so awesome.
it's wild. I've been pretty blessed and lucky with that. So
So you mentioned the calluses, and as a musician, like especially a strings musician, like developing calluses is essential to, being able to get the sound that you want to get and keep it consistent. And with diabetes, like you're just interrupting that, and also like having to turn the lancet all the way up to 10 just to, get a little bit of blood out potentially, or moving it down your fingers. What other challenges like does being a musician with diabetes present? I know like being on the road and playing late night shows, and even just playing shows in general. Like what's going on with your body and your blood sugar when those things are happening?
I mean, just the I know playing especially your bigger shows, your big festivals or even being on set, my blood sugar tends to spike, and it's the adrenaline you have in your system. You're really excited about it, and that can be really tough. And you have to be careful to not stack your insulin and get those lows, which often happens. So I'll be midway through a set or midday uh on a shoot or something, and I'm crashing. I'm like, oh no, I didn't pay attention. I did too much, or I didn't eat enough. But those are probably the biggest challenges. And then, you're trying to suck down some soda like during a quick set break and get up there and sing through that or act through that. And then you got to talk to your fans after, and you're like, I need a second. Sometimes I gotta be like, okay, hold on 1 second, let me grab something. And I'll be honest about it, because you know these days people recognize me from the commercial, which is still a wild thing. So they're like really understanding, which is great. But yeah, it's a multi-layered experience for sure, being a creative with a performer with diabetes.
Well, and I think too, it just takes a lot of like vulnerability, not just to say, hey, this is difficult for me, but just to be honest and say, and upfront and say, hey, I'm going through something really quick. Like, let me chug this juice box before we move on to the next song. And just being able to, I think it's so important for people, who are seeing you do that, who live with diabetes, because then hopefully they'll have the courage or be able to see, oh, because Austin is honest and has courage about his diabetes, maybe I can do the same thing for me, for myself in my life. And I think those are the things that you don't necessarily see, but I know those things are having an impact, and like people are making that connection.
Absolutely. And that's been the probably the greatest part of all of this, is just being able to connect with people that I otherwise wouldn't have ever been able to do. And everybody's got their own story, but I feel like with us, especially as type 1 diabetics, like there's a really familiar line that kind of goes through all of our stories and connects us all. And it's pretty fascinating to hear everybody's. It's almost like the multiverse. There's a little differences in each story, but
Yeah.
it's still there. It's still us. It's still us in the community, and it's been a wild ride, man. It's been a wild ride.
Yeah, it continues to be a wild ride for me too. Like this has been I had a tough diabetes day this week, and I was like, man, like just when you think you got it figured out, like something twists. Like it just still throw you a little extra curveball, just to keep you honest.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. It was tough week for me too. Made some made some changes lately with, not just medication, but with diet, and been having those crashes lately, and I usually don't run low, so it's been a challenging week, and then getting back into playing basketball, which I know you are a fantastic player yourself, and playing ball with diabetes, man, that's a tough thing. That's a
Let's talk about it because you know, thank first of all, thank you for the compliment. But like, I also like, I'm a men's league guy now, or like a pickup player now. Like that's
Yep.
my professional days are behind me, but I still have the challenges of when you get there, just like you were saying about a performance, you're excited, your adrenaline's running, you're getting on the court, you go up high, and then you play for a little while, and you kind of stay a little bit high. But as soon as you sit down after it's over, you're gonna in two arrows straight down. So yeah, how do you prep for what's in the Austin James gym bag when you're just having to go play some pickup?
The gym bag, yeah. So you always got to have those Welch's fruit snacks, man. That's the go-to. A banana before I play has definitely been helping me, not just with the potassium, because I also um was recently diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So my lactic acid buildup is like 5 times the normal. So that's really tough on my muscles. So I'm eating a banana beforehand to keeping myself hydrated, and then just kind of monitoring my glucose levels through it, and understanding that, hey, that high is gonna happen, and you just gotta ride that out. You gotta ride that out. So it's about figuring out how to maintain when to eat one of those fruit snacks, because you're gonna drop. And it's just, man, it's you're doing the job of your poor dead organ there, and it is a
Full time pancreas, right?
full time pancreas. It's always on my mind. So it can get frustrating, but at the same time, it keeps me. Diabetes has definitely taught me to be just mindful of my body. I have to be mindful. And that's a lot. That's a lot mentally, but at the same time, it's also good to be health conscious 24/7 and know what I'm putting in my body and how much I'm exerting and this, that, and the other. So it's a challenge, but it's one I'm up for.
Well, and it sounds like recently, being diagnosed with fibromyalgia, like that added another layer of complexity. And oftentimes, and I'm not a scientist, so I'll categorize, I'll give that the caveat always is that I am just the podcast guy. But my sister actually is thankfully going through her first pregnancy, and so we're gonna get a nephew or niece here soon, and that's gonna be really exciting for me. But she also learned like through that process that she carries a recessive trait for fibromyalgia, which is not uncommon among people who have diabetes in their family. So as we kind of are asking those questions like you were when you were diagnosed, like why is this happening or where is this coming from? We're kind of understanding that as well. So how like what were your symptoms kind of like going in, and how did you approach that diagnosis, and how are things different for you now after being diagnosed with fibromyalgia?
Oh goodness. So, I was struggling a lot with obviously the mental health aspects, but brain fog that was kind of moonlighting as memory loss. I was having a
Hmm.
hard time getting my thoughts in order. Um, the pain, just the fatigue, the low energy, chronic migraines. I mean, I think of the 18 symptoms, I had 17 of them.
Wow.
just like, what is going on with my body? I felt like I didn't know my body anymore, and I was getting so frustrated and so just worn out, just wanted to give up, and like, man, but it's so connected because I'm already immunocompromised with the diabetes, and I've always been so good with my diabetes, never been, hospitalized for it. And, thankfully I've just always really taken care of myself and prided myself on that. But here I am taking care of that, but I'm getting this other thing that's really tough. And, it's one day I could be out on the court, the next day I have my cane, because I can't walk, I
Right.
can't move. So it's just kind of being gentle with myself and saying, hey, be grateful for the body you're in, even though sometimes it doesn't work like you want it to.
Well, and I think too, like listening to your body and being mindful of it, like you said, you're so on top of your diabetes management, and then to be able to not feel well and to know and like something else to be wrong and have to learn another hurdle and another set of symptoms to keep an eye on or medications to take and different types of preparation while that rhythm like is familiar for somebody managing a chronic illness and immunocompromised, like it can also be frustrating. So like, how did you like, did you feel a little bit of relief when you got the diagnosis that it wasn't like just in your head, or that at least, something else was wrong that could be identified?
Yeah, absolutely. And it gives you an assurance that you can do something to at least manage it. But the optics are tough because at the end of the day, something like fibromyalgia and even diabetes at times can be that invisible illness. So, you got guys on the court making fun of me because, oh, what's wrong with you? Why are you limping around? It's like, well, I mean, I can't move. I got no lift in
Right.
my number today, or, I can barely run up and down the court, or, people at shows saying, what's going on? You seem really low energy. And, it's hard. The optics are tough, but being able to kind of figure out a pain management treatment has been really helpful. And at the end of the day, it is a lot, but there's hope there, which is great.
There is, and I think too, that's a very relatable experience, right? When people like to poke fun at things that are different, especially in a pickup game, right? Because there's a little bit of like machismo and masculine, going back and forth, right? And so, but then you're like, oh yeah, I live with a really debilitating, painful illness. Like, don't you feel great about making fun of me?
Throw it at him, make him feel bad. Like, oh, my bad, man. It's like, it's all good.
Yeah, yeah. It's just, hey, this is me being honest. Just like, yeah, that's sometimes like when I'm really feeling myself on the court, I like will remember that I have a pump in my like tights. It's like sitting, just in my pocket basically. And it's like they don't have that and they don't know that I do. And I just get this is like a little private little flex for myself, which is always fun.
Oh yeah.
It's an interesting moment to I just want to say, because there's a lot of jock stuff going on right now, but it's just, there's still stigma on the court. Like, I think that that's so, like, as men, you're out here, you're sweating, you're grunting, you're doing all this like athleticism, and we still have to be mean to each other. So I just, for a moment, like, we got to think like, why does this stigma exist in that way? Like, I just wish there was more compassion for each other on the basketball court, but I guess y'all go in there with this mama mentality. I don't know.
Yeah, everybody's trying to get their work in. I think it's so interesting though, because it is stigma, but also like it's an opportunity. So because if you don't live with diabetes, I try to think of myself before I was diagnosed. I never thought about diabetes at all, and it just wasn't really involved with my life. I knew that there were people around with type 2 diabetes, that there were some people who had diabetes when they were younger, but I didn't really know anything about it. And so I think now, as a mature person, a very mature, buttoned up basketball playing individual, I can like say, oh yeah, it's a recognition that this person just doesn't know anything about diabetes. And maybe I can be the example for them. And they're just coming from a place of lacking information. And so I don't know. I also will like throw a couple like, snapback, quick reactions from time to time. I'm not guilty, or I'm not innocent of that, but hey, it just is what it is.
It happens, man. That testosterone gets going and Forget
The
about
Rob
it.
Howe wrath is not something
my
that I think
gosh.
anybody wants to experience. I feel like a lot people don't even know it exists, but I'm telling you, like it is real.
Between the
Oh,
lines,
I need,
like it kind, it just, you
I
never
need
know what
to
can
see
happen.
the side. Oh, that's funny. That's funny. Oh,
So yeah, let's shift back though to kind of like educating and like being very visible. You've always been, I think, in a visible, like as an artist, you've been visible with your diabetes and like been out in the public eye. But over the last year or two, even more so as the face of the Abbott campaign. And I think that every time I'm at a hotel or like a public event with addressable TV, because I know about media targeting and I know how that gets placed. Like I'm in the room and they know I have diabetes, so I'm gonna get that. I'm gonna get that ad. So you follow me around pretty regularly. So what's it like for you to like be somewhere, like see the ad, or like how do people reach out to you and talk to you, or like even family members or like friends that don't have diabetes? Like what's it like being the face of a big brand like Abbott?
it's it's insane, man. I get the messages all the time. You know, I'm mostly on Instagram because that's where I do the majority of my social media promotion. But lots of messages from strangers, from family. I've been able to connect with some incredible people too. I had a Grammy award-winning artist reach out to me who is currently on tour with Chris Stapleton, which is incredible. He reached out to me and was just saying, "Hey, I saw your ad, and it really, kicked me in the butt and got me to wear my CGM again and take care of my diabetes." So that meant a lot to me.
Wow.
Never had that conversation if I wasn't doing what I was doing, and I've had some pretty incredible connections with a mother had reached out to me and said that her daughter always sees my commercial on TV and says, "Oh, I wanna be a musician just like Austin," and that was an incredible thing because I wasn't terribly young when I had diabetes, so I can't even imagine how it is for some 5 or 6 year old to go through that, and but to have an example of somebody that's living their dream, that's a big deal, for kids to have somebody to look up to, and that person gets to be me. Like, first of all, that's crazy. I never would have thought in a million years that it would be me. But man, at the end of the day, I'm just trying to share my story and help people, and I think that comes across in that ad, even the 30 seconds it's on. Just that it's honest. It's me. That's me. That's what I'm going through. This is what I've been through, and this thing has changed my life.
Well, I think it's so important to be vulnerable and be open about that. And for, like you said, that young girl can see someone who is living the life that she can envision for herself. And it's like, I want to be a musician like Austin. And just that didn't exist. Like, for me, I remember in the early days of Google, like finding that, Adam Morrison had played college basketball with diabetes, and Chris Dudley played in the NBA with diabetes. And I was like, okay, well, it's possible, but there's no way to reach out to those people or connect to those people. But now, because of social media, we can see that. And, her mom can send you a message and like connect with you and be like, you're able to like cheer them on and encourage them from afar in a way that makes kind of everybody feel good.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
technology has really changed that. I remember being an 8-year-old and like meeting adults at events, like at diabetes camps, because I was diagnosed when I was really small, and like being like, oh, well, I want to be whatever, such and such is a marathoner, or such and such can do whatever. So it's just really cool to me that someone like you, Austin, can impact people that you don't even know, that whose heart you're touching or whose soul you're inspiring. What 4-year-old or 10-year-old is looking at you and is like, that guy, that's the guy that I want to be like when I grow up. So that's completely changed the game. So how inspiring that you get to change things for people who maybe see themselves in you in different ways.
And I think too, like even people that you don't know that live with diabetes who are like peers of yours, like, so you said like a Grammy winning artist, like saw you, an artist with diabetes, like talking about a CGM, and it motivated them to like take better care of themselves, which is like such a small thing, but like what a big impact, for that one person, especially, is just like, we all know the impact that like seeing yourself in somebody else with diabetes can have. And that's why it's so important to have musicians and athletes and business people and models and moms and dads and, and brothers and sisters on the podcast, because otherwise, like, what do you do when you're diagnosed with diabetes? You look for somebody who's doing the thing that you love or doing the thing that you want to do, just so that you can know it's possible. And now you can not only find it's possible, but you can reach out to those people and, ask them as many questions as, they're comfortable answering. Right. But there's great examples in the community all across. And I think it's a really cool, patient empowered shift that, social media has given us, and that we're able to know you. Like, I shouldn't really, like, 10 years ago, we never would have been able to know each other and have these connections and like be inspired by, these inspiring stories. So yeah, it really is cool to see how, putting the story and really putting the power in the patient's story and using their voice can have really big ripple effects.
Yeah. And I mean, what in another important thing to add to that too is just the visibility um in the Black and brown communities too, which is really important because diabetes is such an epidemic. Folks like Dex and Mila and Kelvin Davis, like and myself, we've been able to, have our faces and our voices and our stories shared in those Black and brown communities that are often underserved and have less access to, this incredible diabetes technology. And that's probably been the most important thing that I know I've been able to do, and I think they would agree with that as well.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about it on this podcast, like that, historically diabetes has had a very particular aesthetic when it comes to like marketing, and even just like stock photos of people with diabetes are just mostly white. And
Hella
so,
white, super blancos.
Super, super.
So yeah, so just
Oh,
to get to
I
see
yeah.
like you guys representing that on a bigger level, and like be somebody, and also away from stigma, because it's not just like, oh, look at these Black people with diabetes and how bad their life is. It's the exact opposite. It's like, look at these people who represent diabetes in a positive way and in the way that it should be, more inclusive, and inclusive of people with different careers. Like, you mentioned you, Dex, and Mila, all three of you are wildly different, and yet you live with the same disease and can use the same technology. And both of them are friends of the pod, so shout out to Dex and Mila for sure for all the
It's
work that
also
they do.
important to note that like people of color are not just severely like over impacted by diabetes, but also we don't think that we should get access to these things. Like for a lot, like you think it's fancy, you think it's out of reach, you think like this is the BMW of diabetes, when really like everyone across the board should have access to CGM, because time and range should be the way that we are measuring diabetes for everyone.
She's spitting now.
Bars right there, bars. Oh my God. Yeah, that is, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's it right there. Access. Access.
Well, we've
Wow.
hit the access point, which is super important. And I think really close adjacent to that is mental health, which is also an invisible, struggle. And you're not able to see a burden that somebody's carrying. For you, like being a mental health advocate publicly as an artist and as a person with chronic illnesses, what made you, be willing to share that with your community, with your fans? And like, what was it that was sort of the catalyst of you deciding that it was really important for you to put that out there?
Yeah, that's loaded.
That's
I
a big
think,
question. That's sorry for springing that on you.
oh, it's all good. So I think being a creative in the way that I was doing it, everything that I wrote and played and performed was so inherently personal. So here
Hmm.
I am sharing what I'm going through, and I started writing after my sister passed away back in 2009. That's when I really started to write my own songs. The first song I wrote was about her. And so everything was so deeply personal, and I've learned to kind of write about what's going on around me, or something that's maybe not even be, connected to me per se, but God, it was so personal. So I felt like I had no choice but to talk about those those mental health connections there, and to be vulnerable and candid right now. When I was 30, when I turned 30, I had a complete, like, just out of nowhere, complete mental breakdown. I didn't know what I was almost comatose, and I was hospitalized. And it was a scary time. I didn't know what was going on. Why am I like this all of a sudden? But there's that chemical aspect to it. And was it connected to my diabetes? That was around the time when I was pretty sick of the finger sticks and I wasn't on the CGM yet. So, but being able to be medicated at the time and have a talk therapist and a good community around me of people that were checking in with me and making sure that I was good, because I had always been the one checking in on everybody else. And it was a situation where, God, like, here I am pouring into everybody else, but who's pouring back into me? And I needed that at that time. And maybe that was part of that breakdown as well. The diabetes, the just that the giving spirit without the reciprocation, and it was a lot. So I was pretty open about what I went through, and I had a photo shoot shortly after that was focused on mental health, that connected with a lot of people, and that shoot gave me the confidence to then talk about my diabetes journey and what I'd been through and how it was all connected. So it is difficult to be vulnerable, but it's gotten easier. And now it's just like, hey, this is part of my story. I'm not ashamed to share it. And especially as a man, but a man of color dealing with mental health, God, the stigma's there. Ooh, through the roof, man. It's just through the roof. And a lot of guys in my circle are, hey, I don't need therapy. Oh, I'm fine. Just, man up. You'll be good. You'll be good. And it's like, nah, man, it's like I'm gonna check in on you because I know that life is hard enough, and then you throw kids and illness and this, that, and the other, and just getting older. You throw that all into the mix, and you're gonna need at the end of the day, you're gonna need your people.
Man, couldn't have said it better. I think, especially, we were talking about our basketball games and like our guys in our, masculine circles who are, they're kicking the can down the road. I'll get to it later, or it's not a priority right now, or I'm worried about other stuff. You can't pour from an empty cup. And if you're constantly pouring that out, I think that's what you were saying with like, what are you taking in? Like, what is that reciprocation? You got to make sure that you're filling yourself up, whether that's with talk therapy, whether that's even just simple things like sleep and hydration and medication, like making sure that you're taking care of yourself and being mindful of enough to say, wow, I feel different. Maybe I should reach out and, ask a friend. I think I want to be that friend for my people. And it sounds like you're the same way for yours. And I think, especially in those, alpha male communities where, you're not trying to, nobody wants to admit that something's difficult, or nobody wants to admit that they need help somewhere, and everybody's trying to power through. And I just think that, spoken from a recovering alpha hyper masculine dude from back in the athlete days, little talk therapy goes a long way. And mindfulness and consistency, I think, is another thing. And you talked about aging, which is another thing that's tough. You just wake up some days and you're like, man, I just don't have what I used to have in the tank. And how do I adjust? How do I move forward? And that's just giving yourself a little bit of grace can go a long way.
That's exactly what it is. It's that little bit of grace for sure. Because man, life's tough, man.
Austin, you said something now that, as a Black woman, I really, really hear you. And it was really small, but I heard it. And it's like being medicated. And I feel like when you're an African-American person and when you're a person of color, there is not just the stigma of going to the therapy and then getting the medication and then being open about it with your friends and family, because then instances will happen with those friends and family. And then that little comment, well, go to your little therapy then. go take your little pill then. And things like that, though, is just being said in your community when you're trying to be vulnerable and you're trying to help people and be open about your own struggle. So I wonder, I have no idea what it's like to be a man. Thank you, Jesus. But how do you overcome? Like, how do you continue to be like, no, this is my journey, this is what I'm doing, and I don't care about all the stigma that comes around with it?
God, I think I had I had this conversation recently. You know, people getting at me for being soft or sensitive or this, that, and the other. And you know, I had to tell them, I was like, you know, this would have bothered me a few years ago, maybe a couple of years ago, but at the end of the day, I look at what I've been able to do. Like, I am literally living my dream. I am not only living my musician dream, I have my own small business. I've been able to do some acting. I'm in a national TV ad. I'm the face of this massive company. Like, those are incredible things that I've gotten to do. And it's not like, I don't want to make it like a comparing moment, like I've been able to do this. What have you been able to do? But like at the end of the day, like in those hyper masculine situations, it's like, well, look at what I've done. What are you doing? Like, you're miserable. You're miserable. So it's kind of stepping back and saying, well, you know what? I really can't let this bother me because I'm living my dream. And maybe they're having a miserable day, or maybe they're going through something where they feel the need to, you know, be a little hateful or be a little upset or whatever. That's on you. I'm not going to exacerbate that situation. You know, prayers for you. Hope your life gets a little bit better. But you know, you can't worry about it. You really can't.
And I totally agree. And I love that perspective. I do think, though, it takes time to get there, because I think what's strange about reaching a lot of people is that you learn that people are wild and like, you know, that sometimes it's just, you've just reached them at the wrong time. Or, you know, I read this, there's this blog by Paul Graham, who's the founder of Y Combinator. It's called Haters. And it's basically like, haters are super fans that something went wrong with them. Like, they should love you, but they don't. And so they just hit them at the wrong time, or they're just feeling some type of way. And it takes time, because like the first time somebody reaches out and just says something hateful to you, it is a shock. It feels like for me at least, it felt like I had done something terribly wrong. And then I was like, took me some time with my therapist, like worked through some of it. And it was mostly like, I had to work my way to accept it, that like there was nothing I could do, there's nothing I did that made them feel that way. It's more on them, and, you know, hey, wish them the best. And I'm just like, not going to let some of that affect me. And also, like, you know, this is difficult, especially with diabetes, and like, you know, managing it. We talked about just life in general is hard enough. Life with diabetes is extremely difficult. Throw in a little like work or family drama, and then you're like really messed up. So I try to have grace for that, but you know, it is a shocking and like weird thing to get used to when, you know, people come slide out, you know, coming out the side of their neck talking mad nonsense about you.
Right.
And it's like, oh, whoa, my bad for being out there publicly trying to help people.
Yeah, I mean, I've posted instances of people like hitting up my booking email and talking like wild crazy. I got a death threat a couple months ago. Like, just like, dude, sorry. First of all, sorry for being on your TV. Like, it's not my fault. But man, it's like Cat Williams said, man, haters need a job too. So
I
Right.
cannot. No, not Cat Williams on Diabetics Doing Things podcast.
This is not the first mention of Cat Williams. I feel like it's like the
Oh
second
my
or third. So it
God.
happens. It
he's
does
a
happen.
hater. Haters need to hate, man. That's it. Feel free to
I
hate
love
on
it.
No, I do too. And I think it's like good to be open about those types of things. I think we're kind of living in an age where, you know, being an influencer or being a content creator or a podcaster or, you know, a public figure is like what some people are like want to do with their lives. And I think it's important to talk about like you got to get the good, you also have to accept the bad. And, you know, sometimes even with your best intentions, you know, people are going to be upset about something. And that's just, you know, I think when you reach a lot of people, there's going to be some people that just don't vibe with you, and that's okay. That's not a reflection. To me, I'm like, hey, there's plenty of other people that you can love and give and you know, support, and you can just kind of miss me.
That's how you know you made it, man, when you got the haters.
All right. I could do without them though, honestly. So you've got some dates coming up in the Northeast. It looks like you're going to be doing some shows up in Connecticut in February and March. What are you excited about, sharing your music and on this sort of like spring 2023 tour that you got going on?
Yeah, so just doing those are all the local shows. Getting ready to drop all the national shows this year. We're gonna be back down in Nashville, Orlando, Atlanta, I believe Chicago as well. So we'll be around pretty much everywhere all summer. That'll be in the summer. So right now it's just some local shows. We are in the process of recording our second full length as a band. So we've been doing that. We got a couple of them down so far. So that's been really fun and time consuming. But we're excited. It's going to be a different year. We did about 130 shows last year, and that was a lot. Never again. So we're kind of focusing on recording this year and throwing shows in when we can. But we will we'll be traveling a little bit more this year.
Well, very cool. And yeah, I definitely relate. Sometimes I'm too optimistic about doing too many things. And then by the end of it, I'm like, why did I do that to myself? 130 shows is wild.
It's a lot.
I'm starting to notice this common thread with Rob and our guests where you guys are all delusional, but that's okay because it fully fuels your dreams and you definitely still cross that finish line. So if the delusion gets you gentlemen through, then I'm here for it.
There we go.
Hey, you know what? I think it's working pretty well so far.
It's not too bad.
Yeah, it's working pretty well.
Not so bad at all, man. It's not so bad at all.
I do have one kind of like closing question that I want to ask you, and you've done a really great job of. This has been an awesome conversation, like around a lot of threads that I didn't even really expect kind of coming into it. But for other young people and people with diabetes or people struggling with chronic illnesses, even young people of color who are dealing with mental illnesses and struggling with that stigma, like what advice would you have to them, from you, Austin James, to for those people who are just trying to keep it together?
Wow. I think this day and age we have access to so much, and these kids have access to so much. For these kids, like find community, find online community, find other people that are dealing with these things, and find the right role models. It's been interesting seeing a lot of athletes now being so open about mental health, and you're seeing visibility now with athletes like it was Mark Andrews and the guy on the Chiefs. I forgot the tight end there that have diabetes, and these people are they're just the visibility is there now. So it's letting these kids know, like, you have role models right in front of you. You have access to community. So, you play your Among Us and your Roblox, but like also, with parental consent, find a community. There's a lot of communities out there. There's a lot of resources, and the technology now is so incredible to be able to manage your diabetes, things that I wish I had when I was younger.
And even people who are like really into like Roblox or like Fortnite, there's gamer communities with diabetes as well, which is pretty exciting. And I just got introduced to the JDRF Game to Give community last year, and it's just cool, man. Like people are raising big money for diabetes, gaming from home, and like that didn't exist before. Like what a cool opportunity.
You gotta hook me up with that, by the way.
Done. Consider it done. That's an easy intro.
Cool. I like that.
Well, yeah, Austin, man, thank you so much for all that you do for people with diabetes. We're going to post, along with your post when this podcast goes live, your local tour dates, and we'll for sure share out your national tour dates when those go live. But man, thank you for being such a great role model for so many with diabetes, and for continuing to share your vulnerable moments as well, because I know that as much as we like to think we've all got it figured out, it's really nice to see when somebody at your position is being open with their struggles. And if you don't follow him already, it's Austin James Music on Instagram. So
And Austin James and the Nomads as well. Those are my-
Austin James and the Nomads. Tour dates coming soon.
Yes.
All right. Thank you guys for listening.
Thank you.